Hi YouTube and welcome back to my channel. Today is Vlogmas Day 11 and today I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of my favorite TV shows, both growing up as a child and then also what I enjoy watching today. So going back, I was born in 1971, so I watched a lot of shows back in the 70s and 80s, and when I was really little I remember loving a lot of shows like The Hardy Boys, and Man from Atlantis was one of my favorites. Patrick Duffy before he was on Dallas in those little tiny yellow shorts. And yes, I know I was only a little wee little thing, but I kind of appreciated how he looked. He swam like a dolphin, it was really cool. And looking back on photos and things and rewatch, I mean, Man from Atlantis only lasted one season. It was kind of a lame show, but when I was a little kid I really enjoyed it, so I definitely liked shows like that. But I also loved all of the variety shows that we had back in the 70s and going into the early 80s. There was Sonny and Cher, there was Donnie and Marie, and I got to see Donnie and Marie live for my 42nd birthday in Las Vegas. I never thought I'd ever get to see them live because, I mean, they were on TV for numerous years back in the 70s, and then obviously they went by the wayside with the variety shows and stuff. They just weren't popular anymore, and so I never thought I'd get a chance to see them live, and you know, now they're doing it in Las Vegas, and that was a thrill. That was a thrill for me. I was probably the youngest person there, but that's okay. I'm okay with that because yeah, I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 when Donnie and Marie came out, and I actually still have the Donnie and Marie dolls. If you Google for Donnie and Marie dolls, you'll see the little purple outfits that they had. It was pretty cool. And funny little side note there, I was at the annual digital marketing conference that I go to every year, called Adobe Summit, and it was like 2 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, when we started going to Las Vegas. The conference used to be held in Salt Lake, now it's in Las Vegas, and for the second opening session we were greeted by Donny Osmond himself, and there were, I don't know, 8,000 or 9,000 of us wandering in after all the parties the night before, and he sang a song for us. He did the Mulan, the song that he did for the movie Mulan, and tried to get us to all sing along to kind of help wake us up and get us going for the day. And then the first keynote speaker that came out was the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer for Mattel Toys. They're the ones that make Barbie dolls and everything else. Well, Mattel's the one that made the Donnie and Marie dolls. Well, so the CMO comes out, he starts talking about the Barbie brand and everything, and Donny Osmond comes stalking out on stage, and he's like, I've got a bone to pick with you. Even though, I mean, the CMO is like a couple of decades younger than Donnie himself is, so he probably wasn't part of the decision-making process back in the 70s, but when they were making the Donnie and Marie dolls, Donnie was saying that Marie had a complete custom doll made for her. So the body was custom, the head was custom, the hair was custom, all to look like her. Where with Donnie's doll, they kind of just did a custom head and stuck him on a Ken doll body, basically. They didn't make a custom body for him. And he's like, that's always upset me. Well, and of course, you know, uproarious laughter in the audience for that. So I thought that was funny. I don't know how many other people would appreciate that humor, but I did. But yeah, lots of variety shows. Carol Burnett, I mean, whether or not you're into all the song and dancey type musical variety shows, but I mean, who can ever say that they hated Carol Burnett? She was brilliant with all the sketch comedy and stuff that she did on her show, and she just seemed like such a lovely person and everything. So I loved watching her show and watching her little skits and and everything. And you know, because there was a lot of adult humor in her show that went way over my head as a kid, and rewatching some of the skits online nowadays, I laugh even more than I used to, because I'm like, oh. Which you know, obviously I didn't get, and no one explained it to me, and that's perfectly fine. But I definitely loved those shows. And then going into the early 80s, the only variety show that kind of survived past the 80s, I think, or past the 70s, was the Barbara Mandrell show that I recall. So she had that, and then there was the Muppet Show, I think, also would be considered a variety show. So those were shows I remember in the 80s. And then going into the mid to late 80s, I started getting into things like Knight Rider and MacGyver. Oh, I love MacGyver. I had such a crush on Richard Dean Anderson. And I got to, another fun story there is I got to meet him at a science fiction convention, Starfest. Pardon for the interruption in the video. My SD card actually ran out of memory while I was recording this video, and so I had to go in and clear things out a little bit before I could finish recording. So where I was at, I was talking about shows in the 80s and my crush on Richard Dean Anderson and how I got to meet him at Starfest in Denver. So with that, it's a 3-day weekend type of event where there's Friday, Saturday, Sunday things going on, and I usually get tickets for a lot of the different things. There's a meet and greet every Friday on for the Starfest weekend, where you get to meet some of the actors. Now, oftentimes the higher bigger named actors usually don't come to the meet and greets. Their handlers usually don't allow it, whatever, for whatever reason. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's kind of hit or miss, but it's usually the older actors who haven't acted in a while and that kind of thing. And I guess in my mind, I still see Richard Dean Anderson as a higher level actor, even though he hasn't actually done anything in at least a decade now. So he really isn't, but for me he's a big name still. And so I was actually surprised that he actually came to the meet and greet, because he, for many years, he didn't do conventions at all. He didn't do fan conventions like all the other actors from Stargate and things like that came to the conventions and talked with fans and everything else, but he just kind of stayed away. He's like, yeah, I don't need to do that kind of stuff. And only in the last few years has he actually started to venture out and start to meet fans and go to fan conventions and that kind of thing. And so that was a treat that he actually came and he sat. Like, they basically have us in these round tables, about 6 people to a table, and there's usually about 10 or 12 tables. And he came, you know, like they rotate tables and everything, all the actors. And so he came to our table and he was just absolutely adorable. I was afraid that, you know, I get to meet this guy that I've had a crush on for so many years, and he's going to end up being some kind of curmudgeonly grump who hates his fans and is just reluctantly there. But he was just warm and open and shared stories and talked to us and blushed like crazy over just about every little thing, which was so adorable. So that was a lot of fun. And then the next day I got to do the photo op with him, and I never do photo ops with the actors. He was the only one that for me it was worth the money to get the photo op, because again, I'd been a fan of his for just such a very long time, and so I'll put put the photo up here so you can see it. And he's blushing so adorably in this thing, and I was on the verge of tears when I was in line waiting to get the photo. And they do it real quick. Like, you walk out there, he puts his arm around you, they take the photo, and boom, next. You know, it's a production. It's an assembly line that they do, because there's so many people, especially with the names like Richard Dean Anderson. Leonard Nimoy was a big one. William Shatner. You know, any one of the actors from the really big popular shows, the main actors will have the really long lines with the really, you know, eager fans and everything, and so to try and get as many of the fans through as possible so that everyone gets a photo that wants one, that's paid for one, they have to kind of just move you along. And so I was really grateful for that. And then the next day, it took them a day to get us the printouts of the photos, but then the next day I was able to take the photo and then go and have him autograph it for me. So I got to see him and talk to him and interact with him at least a little bit 3 times that weekend. Plus, there's always the stage Q&A where the actors go on stage and they talk to fans and they take questions on things. And so that was fun. Alright, so getting past the 80s, obviously I watched, oh yes, so I talked about the variety shows and that kind of thing. And obviously I watched a lot of Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and just all the sci-fi and stuff. That was a big part of my childhood growing up. And then getting into the 90s, I loved all of the different Star Trek iterations from Next Generation and Voyager and DS9 and Enterprise. And yes, I liked all of them. Everyone's like, what's your favorite? I liked all of them. I may not have liked bits and pieces of them. Yes, there were episodes here and there that were probably not as well done as others. I did not like how they ended Enterprise. I thought they did not give that show a fair chance. I think it was really starting to come into its own in the 4th season, and it got canceled, and they should have had the full 7 seasons like everyone else, in my opinion. Yes, I'm watching the new Star Trek Discovery. I haven't, I've only gotten in a couple of episodes so far, and that's as far as my friends and I have gotten, because I'm watching that with friends together. And so, but yes, I love all the sci-fi and everything, and that kind of leads me to the shows I really like today. I'm still watching Once Upon a Time. Really enjoying. I was really skeptical about the changes they were doing with the show for this season, since most of the original principal cast left the show. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna, like, grown-up Henry and all this stuff. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. But I gave it a chance, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I don't know what the other fan reactions are. I haven't looked up online to see whether or not it's been getting positive reviews or not, but I'm really enjoying it, and I actually think that the adult actor who's playing the grown-up version of the one son from the past seasons, he actually does a really good job of mimicking some of the facial expressions and mannerisms of the other actor, the younger actor. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really good, and I'm actually really enjoying the storyline too. So I'm like, they're actually refreshing everything in a way that I actually enjoy. I was expecting the show to jump the shark, and maybe other people have said that. Maybe this will be the last season, I don't know, but I'm gonna enjoy it, so there's that. I love all of the different superhero shows out there right now, and the fact that they're doing all these crossovers and things with Flash and Arrow and Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow, and then on Netflix you've got Jessica Jones and Daredevil and all of those, and them getting together as the Defenders. And I grew up reading, I read a lot of books, but I also read a lot of comic books, and I read all the Defenders and the Avengers and the Justice League, and I loved both DC and Marvel comic book characters. And so it's kind of like seeing all of this stuff come to life, and the fact that they're honoring not just like the current storylines and how the current comic books are going, but they're giving a lot of nods back to the classic 60s, 70s, 80s variants, even back into the Silver Age, the 40s and 50s, with some of the characters. And I love all the little nods and things, and bringing back the older actors like the Dean Cain, who played Superman in, was it Lois and Clark? And he's playing Supergirl's father, well, adoptive father anyway. And then her adoptive mom was Supergirl in the movie back in the 80s, or it was 80s, maybe it was 90s, but anyway. But the fact that they're doing all that and giving a nod to the shows and movies and comics that came before them is really fun. And of course, you know, I like the movies as well, but I'll talk about movies in a separate video. But yes, I love all of that stuff. Let's see, Supernatural. that is I would say right now would be my favorite show currently, to the point where it's become an obsession. I did not, and here's a confession right now, is I did not start watching the show Supernatural when it first came out. I remember seeing all the hoopla when it was first launched. They did a huge marketing campaign for it, and I was kind of skeptical about it. I think I watched one episode and I was like, oh, it's another one of those Monster of the Week kind of shows. Meh. And I was really busy at the time with school and work. No, was I still in grad school? No, I was done with grad school, but I was really busy with my career and just starting to get into, I think I was between just done with dating and then meeting my husband and everything, and so that was more of a priority, and I was getting more into playing certain video games, and I just kind of didn't give Supernatural any attention, and I was like, whatever. A lot of people were talking about it, a lot of people liked it, but I was like, you know, and the more popular something is, the less I'm likely to check it out. I tend to be kind of ornery that way. So it took me a long time to get into the show. Then I started coming across a lot of fan fiction stories for Supernatural, and I was really impressed by the quality of the stories, and I was actually really enjoying the stories even though I didn't know the characters at all. And it made me want to check the show out. I'm like, oh, maybe I should check the show out. And it was after losing my husband, I was like, okay, I need a distraction. I need something to focus my mind on so that I'm not just curled up in a ball in a corner crying all the time, which I wasn't, but you know, I just needed something to distract me and focus my mind on something else. And so I was like, okay, let me start binge watching this show. At that point it was 11 seasons. Season 12 hadn't started yet, so I was like, okay, let me just binge watch this show. It'll give me a good distraction for a few months, because I think I was binging, I don't know, somewhere between 2 and 4 episodes a night. I wasn't like sitting there 10 hours straight. So it took me a while to get through everything, but I did get through all 11 seasons just before season 12 started. And that's when, you know, I started watching week by week, and so we're into season 13 now, and I really like the show. And a lot of people are like, nah, it's jumped the shark back in season 5, or this and that and the other, but I actually really, I think that they're still doing a really good job with the show. And to be perfectly honest, a part of what I really enjoy is not just the fact that, you know, I like the actors, and yes, they're easy on the eye, and yes, they have a lot of chemistry with each other as the characters and everything, and they do lend themselves really well to a lot of fan fiction stories. In fact, I've started writing some Supernatural fan fiction because there's just a lot going on that lends itself very well to that type of medium. But the actors themselves, I have an enormous amount of respect for. So they've been around for 13 years. Big Bang Theory, the actors there, it's season 11 now, and they're making $1 million an episode, and they're still making those episodes and everything. And they're a little half-hour comedy show. Supernatural, these guys are still making less than $200,000 per episode. I think Jensen's making $175 and Jared's making $150, and I don't know how much the rest of the cast make, but they're all making much less. And in fact, they insist on having, from my understanding, they insist on having lower salaries so that the rest of the crew actually gets paid better. Number one. And I think that's very, very laudable. And the fact that they're not insisting on trying to make $1 million an episode. They can get by just fine on $150,000 an episode, and that's times 23 episodes a season. You know, that's a good chunk of money. And they also do a lot of charity work, and they go out there and they meet the fans, and they honestly seem to love the fandom. They're going around the country and doing, and even Europe and I think Australia as well, where they're doing fan conventions, and they're doing something like at least 10 fan conventions a year. So besides working on the show, they're traveling around the country doing these conventions where they get to meet the fans and just keep the fandom going. And one of the big things that they're doing is a lot of the money that they generate from the conventions and then from various t-shirt campaigns and merchandising campaigns that they have, all the money goes to charity. So they're lending their name and their fame and their time and their energy and some of their own funds to a lot of charitable work. I know Misha Collins, who plays Castiel, has a lot of charitable. He has his own charitable organization called Random Acts. They've been building schools in places like Nicaragua. They're helping homeless single moms in Washington State get homes for the holidays. They're he has this thing called Gishwiz that he does every year that also raises money for charity and does a lot of good for. I think there was one where, and I forget if this was a Random Acts one or if it was one where he was doing it with Jensen and Jared, helping kids in hospitals and stuff. There are just lots of different causes and things that are near and dear to their hearts. I know for Misha, his family was homeless for a time when he was a kid, so that's an important charity for him. I know with Jared, he suffers from depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and things, and so he has I forget the name of his, he has a name for his organization as well that he raises money for to help with research and reaching out and helping people who suffer from that. And then Jensen just kind of joins in, and I don't think he has a specific cause that I've seen, but he joins in with both Misha and Jared and lends his voice and his time and his dedication to helping with their charities and things. And I have a lot of respect for people who use their fame for doing something good and giving back to the wider community out there. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and it just makes me an even bigger fan of the work that they do on the show and everything else. So, all right. So anyway, that's me talking about my favorite TV shows and why Supernatural is my current obsession. And if you have any interest in reading my fan fiction stories, let me know. I'm not just gonna put a link down below. I want people to tell me that they're interested. If you're interested, let me know and I'll give you a link. Tomorrow I'll talk about some of the movies that I enjoy. So stay tuned for that, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.